Hi, Troy. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hi, Julia. Thanks for having me.
Yes, our pleasure. I'm looking forward to our chat. I can't wait for you to share with our listeners a little bit about what you're currently doing and then what your vision is, because I think it's pretty wonderful. So, if you would, could you share with our listeners what you're currently doing with your IHP certification? And then we'll talk about maybe if that's always what you've been doing or if it was something else.
Yeah, absolutely. So today I run a virtual wellness center practicing in Caledonia, Michigan. I usually say Grand Rapids, Michigan, because nobody knows where Caledonia is. But and then I'm also set up at a local chiropractic clinic today, practicing in office, meeting with clients as well. So a little bit of a dual role. And then I bring the IHP experience to the table, Naaman Institute background experience to the table, and Oxygen Advantage to the table as well. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now, but yeah, definitely have a big vision.
That's great. Yeah. A little bit of oxygen, breathing, a little bit of the brain, IHP. It's kind of the whole package. Have you always been in the health and wellness industry, or is this something that you transitioned to from another role?
Yeah, no. So I think I've been practicing around 6 years now. And it's more from various different capacities. So I started off in corporate for 10 years, and I went to school for finance, worked in accounting, did some supervisory work, built some strategy programs for a $2 billion company. That's when I started to fall in love with helping people, when I didn't really know what I was going to do yet. But then actually I hit a state of depression. And that's kind of what jump kicked all of this. So I still have a beautiful wife. Now I have 4 kids, and we just had our first kid, and I was working in the corporate office, and I was actually doing really well, succeeding, but I just was not happy. Like nothing felt fulfilled. I didn't want to talk about my job at home, and just something wasn't right. So after getting down a path to basically depression, is when I finally put, some time into what do I want to do in life. And I came out with 2 things. One of them was my health, and then the other one was education. And how that morphed in the beginning was I grew up as a kid that was severely bullied. So I didn't really have a great childhood bringing up. It was actually very emotionally troubling for me, starting at birth, nearly died at birth, actually. So a lot of troubles when I was a kid. And so I always felt like this need for validation and always doing what other people told me that I should do, because I really never knew what I want to do for myself. And so I took that, and what I started off doing was I hired a writing coach. I started writing my emotional thoughts down, and then built a whole program around speaking about perspectives of bullying in schools. So I started doing public speaking, and I was doing really well before COVID. And I was speaking in several local middle schools, high schools, universities, and things like that. Then I decided that I wanted to learn more about my health too. So in that journey, it brought me to interesting farming. So I started actually meeting with local farmers, learning about how food is grown, local food supply chains, farmers markets. And because I just had a knack for like creating ideas, I created 2 agriculture apps actually. And so the first one was a online farmers market model app that we ran in Michigan, where you could pick up to 18 farmers markets shopping our platform online, and then for an express pickup, which would have been awesome through COVID. We had it shut down by then, but we ran that back in 2018, and then built a second app after that, which actually creates e-wallets for food assistance programs. So basically, if you have like Bridge Card or what used to be called food stamps, women, infant, and children program, or any other type of funding state or federal program, you could actually put those dollars into our app, into different wallets, digital wallets, and then shop a farmer's market using your smartphone. Where today a lot of the markets accept like coupons and tokens, and it's really antiquated. It's crazy. But so we built that. That's still out there. It's an app called Snappier. I've kind of removed myself from it, or even looking to sell it as well, because I then wanted to do what I do today, and I wake up and I love doing. So coming off of COVID, I put a lot of time into learning about brain health. That led me to Amen Institute and learning from Dr. Daniel Amen. I got certified as a brain health coach through his program. One of the main reasons, besides my own health, though, was my mom's side of the family has depression, suicide, Parkinson's, alcoholism. And so I started to see a little bit of a trend there. So I wanted to help myself, help my family. And so that was really why I went into that program. So I did start helping my family, and those were my first clients in that realm. Which, like many IHPs, right, start with your family and friends first. So, but I did that. And then as we were going through that, I created a company called Brain Mavericks, which the whole premise was teaching people to be mavericks for their brain health. What do they wake up every day doing? And we centered it around this concept called brain as a mnemonic, which is breathe, rejuvenate, element, so food health, ignite, exercise, and then nutrients like supplements and food and stuff. And we built a whole program around it. I had a partner. It was awesome. We were doing great. We were teaching people how to basically what Dr. Amen calls killing automatic negative thoughts or ants. And so we started teaching people about that. We started running kids programs. It was awesome. And then we kind of took a pause on that because there was like this gap between what we were doing was like this novelty thing where people were having a hard time understanding what we were trying to help them with, even though we felt many people really needed it coming off of COVID, especially. So we took a step back, both my partner and I, and that's when I went back to school. I went back to IHP. And so I've been a longstanding, just love everything that Dr. Cabral has to say and do. And so the Rain Barrel book led to podcasts, led to their programs, led to me getting into IHP 1 and 2. I just mentioned to Julia before we started this that I just completed my final exam of HPH, or High Performance Health, which I'm pretty excited about. So just love everything really about that program. So I started doing that. And then on the side, I was also learning Oxygen Advantage. So Patrick McEwen out of Ireland created a program that teaches people about functional breathing and wrote a book. I also love reading like the James Nestor books around breathe. So started doing that and teaching that in yoga studios and with clients and everything, because nobody ever teaches you how to breathe when you're a kid. They just don't. So, and I would tell you, so many adults just have no idea what it means to be functional breathing. And I've had so many clients that we've helped with sleep apnea and snoring problems just by changing their breathing. It's incredible. So, I love everything to do with the body and functional health. So as a practitioner, and now I'm fortunate enough to package those together. So anytime I have an opportunity to work with somebody, I think the first course of action for many practitioners is listening. And so it took a while, because when you feel like you have like so much knowledge, it's like, wow, I can't wait to do this, do that, and move as fast as you can. But when you learn to slow down and you listen, then I can bring all that to the table in the most meaningful way. So I'll have clients step to the table and like, they're immediately, I can see like brain health is their main go-to. Like they need something to do with their brain health, managing their environments at home, their relationships. And I don't pretend to be a therapist or a psychologist. I have amazing referral networks for that. But it does help me understand how I can build what's called like, what we're referring to as their personalized wellness suit. How can they begin a journey from where they're at, and how we basically focus on tailoring a wellness suit to match where they want to be in the future. And then they can live that life the rest of their life. It's not chasing anything. Like I need to do meditation because I'm trying to chase mindfulness, or I need to do this diet because I'm trying to chase what foods I can have and not have and live a restrictive life. Like, no, what do you want to do with your life, and what will help you support that every day? Because my job is not to tell you how to live. My job is to help support you to live in the best way that you want to live. And so that's where we coined this term of a wellness suit. We're hopefully moving towards trademarking it and everything else, but we kind of build this outline profile for people so they can feel comfortable that it's not always going to be something that they're chasing. It's going to be something that they can live in every day and just love it.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. What an interesting past of so many twists and turns of what got you here, right? I think we kind of always can get like caught up in, what's the next thing, but sometimes looking back and seeing how much we've already accomplished is so important. So thank you for sharing all of that. It's super interesting. I love what you just said about the wellness suit and kind of what your take is on that, and how, if that's your approach with clients, it's so different than kind of approaching things from okay, you're broken and I'm going to help fix you, right? Which I think is not an ill intention, but I think sometimes, depending on our mindset, it kind of sets the client's mindset up for the way that they're going to approach, right? Everybody has the same goal and thing at heart, right? Which is to get their clients well. But sometimes the mindset and the approach to it is how well we get there, at what amount of ease takes us there, right? Is it a struggle to get there? I would love for you to share a little bit more about what your experience has been so far with these clients. How are they receptive to that? Because it sounds like you're in the middle of trying it on, no pun intended, and hopefully trademarking it. So you're probably, seeing what kind of client receptiveness you're getting to it and success. I would love for you, because I know, personally speaking, I think when we approach wellness from a place of abundance and what is our vision for how we want to feel? I've always said this, not necessarily what do you want to look like, not necessarily what do you want to have, but what does being in a well taken care of body feel like, and living a life that feels good, right? Because before you can have it, you have to feel it. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to let you share with our listeners your experience so far with this approach with your clients.
Yeah. So I guess I'll approach this from working with a client's perspective, and then I'll approach it from a business perspective too, because I find that might be helpful here. So from a client perspective, I think the biggest gap that we have, right, is when we listen to what their concerns are, and we actually figure out what they're really trying to tell us. Because sometimes it's like, what are they really trying to tell us? And what am I thinking that they're telling us? And so once we get to that level of trust and we start to get that, then we can start to break down the barriers that they place on their own selves. Something that, I read a book a while ago called, Breaking the Habits of Being Yourself. And a lot of us live in that realm, right? Even if you came from an awesome childhood, amazing parents, even an awesome environment, we still we create these mini personas of ourselves, and then they show up when we're adults. And so having them go through that realization where that's happening for them helps them break through that restrictive barrier to anything that they've tried in the past. Because my goal really is a lot of times they come to the table and they've worked with somebody as a coach, they've worked with their doctor, they've tried different diets, right? Keto, carnivore, whatever it is. And some of them work, some of them don't. Some of them work for a time period. Some of them don't work at all. But the whole game is what are you really trying to achieve that today you're creating your own barrier for? And how can I help you with the knowledge to expand and fast track your path to get there? Because that's really what my goal is. You have this path that you want to get to. So let's figure out what that is, and then help me help you get there. And so a lot of times it is breaking down not only the brain, but I'm learning a lot about the Heart Math Institute and learning about the heart too, because a lot of times people's emotional pains are what holds them back. Actually, Dr. Will Cole is somebody I also follow. Love his work, and just wrote a book on gut feelings. It's really at the center of a lot of people's problems, because they will do all the diets and they'll put in the time, and then they'll get very frustrated, right? Because they're looking for a result that they just aren't reaching, when really the goal was never reaching anything. The goal was, how do you want to wake up every day and feel, and what's keeping you from getting there? And if it's the emotional side, is it the brain health side? Is it just the choices you're making around food? Maybe it's socioeconomics. Maybe it's your availability to certain nutrients as well. And so how can we break all of that down and get you to at least have a glimpse of what you would love to do as you live life, whether that's you're 80, you're 100 years old, you just want to spend time with your kids. And so we build that wellness suit first, and then we help them progress to get there. And so from a business perspective, what's nice is I learned early on when I was coaching, like, all right, I'm going to do, 30 to 60-minute coaching calls and 3-month packages and all that. And they're great. But then sometimes you get to the end and it's like, well, now I'm done, right? And do I push the client? Do I want them to work with me? How do I, get that to going? But I soon got to this phase. It's like, why is there an end game, right? The end game is not, I give them a package, they get well, and then see you later. Like the package is like, I'm here to help you live that journey. Like, where's your journey start? So let's build a wellness suit. And if your journey starts at reversing autoimmune issues, we're going to focus on that, whether that involves functional medicine labs and digging in and figuring out what's going on. And then we help you get past that level. Then the next is optimizing your health even more. Like, what can you do from an exercise perspective, meditation, stress management, basically building all the tools that you need to make sure that you advance in your life the way that you want. Or just like when we know when something, life comes up and life punches you in the mouth a little bit, how are you going to build resilience to that? Because it's going to happen. I mean, that's the ups and downs. And that's what we're learning in the longevity program too, is just understanding how to deal with that when it happens. And so we get to that place. And then the next step is, well, how could I optimize it even further, right? Maybe there's some things that I could do with reversing my aging, or maybe not. But there's always a few different areas that people love to explore and do. And then what I like to consider that more is like, it becomes, once they feel comfortable in their wellness suit, it's like a hobby that they can kind of do and work on, versus biohacking their way all the way to a result that they think was always the thing they wanted to get to. And then they get there and they're like, what was the point? Or I don't like this, or they have resistance, or maybe even they fall all the way back off the grid and they have to start all the way back on again. And so I think helping people build that blueprint is really where it's at, because it's probably the thing they're asking you for, but it's probably not the thing that they're telling you.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And so many people, I think, there's a lot of people that are in tuned enough, but then there's a lot of people that are completely out of touch with the layers that come into living a life that is meaningful, that feels good, right? And it's so much deeper than just like, okay, here, do this protocol and now your gut's fixed and go ahead, have at it, right? Maybe there was stress that led to gut dysfunction, right? And the stress is trauma that hasn't been released, right? And does somebody just end up back there because they haven't addressed the whole picture, right? And addressed it in a sustainable way that it feels like you can kind of constantly be just being supported, right? I think everybody should have a coach to some degree. We live in a world that needing support, and yes, you can have a supportive spouse or you can have a supportive sibling, but it can wear on relationships when that's the sole, support. And so having an objective person to just be a cheerleader and a support, not in a codependent way, but in a way that feels like you've got me, I am doing all of this, but you're kind of the one that's facilitating the next steps and supporting me, is so meaningful for people, especially in a day and age where there's so many distractions. People are so busy. Unless somebody kind of asks, thought-provoking questions and gets somebody in tune with maybe what they're feeling or symptoms. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten onto a call with a client. I'm like, so how's your sleep? And like they pause and they're like, and like they actually have to think. I'm like, oh, I wake up and I'm like, well, that my sleep, I immediately analyze how my sleep was. But some people who just aren't in that mindset just don't think about any of this stuff. They don't think about how high their stress is. They don't think about their sleep. They're just on autopilot and they're go, 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 go. And having somebody to just kind of help make sure you put your suit on, right? Is so beneficial.
We need reminders, right? We need reminders, because even the best of us fall off the path often, myself included, sacrificing sleep, definitely. And so having coach, I have multiple coaches. I have a thought writing coach. I have a life coach. At one point I had like a yoga coach because I was just really interested in how to, refine my yoga skills. So, I mean, you can build it, but yes, having that support system there. I mean, recently I just had a client that struggled severely with like brain health. She had, showing signs of Alzheimer's, dementia in her past. She is what we would call like a responsible dragon, which means she feels responsible for everybody and everybody, right? So we finally got her to a place where she was feeling great, where she wanted to make decisions around her health, whether that was eating, detoxing, labs, anything like that. We got her to a point where she made decisions finally to kind of do that, look at it. Then we got that even better. She lost weight. She was feeling amazing, right? And then this year, she's having marital relationship problems. She's having troubles with her mom. She's having, you know what I'm saying? And so every year could be different. Every month could give you a swing and a change. And so who's there to kind of help you guide through and support that? And then what part of your wellness suit can you lean on yourself to kind of pull yourself together in those moments, right? Besides your coach. And that's really what it is, right? Like being equipped enough to have those tools to be able to be at your disposal to make decisions and feel supported.
Yes. Yeah. I always say like I'm an empowerment enthusiast, empowering your clients through what you teach them to, yeah, maybe not even need you the whole time, but after you design what it is that they're going to kind of lean on, they're able to use that as a landing pad for when things do get tough. Cause like you said, I mean, things are just, it's inevitable. There's highs, there's lows. We let the highs get us through the lows, and it's just, that's life. And so having a plan in place for your clients to be able to bounce between the two and, not get so stuck is, yeah, so beneficial. Do you feel like clients are receptive to the overall idea of it?
I think so. Maybe you can agree with this too, Julia. Maybe some of the practitioners on here is that there is so much information out there around health and wellness and things for people to do and biohacking. And there's people that people trust when it comes to that. But all of it just, to me, feels overwhelming. And then to the clients, I can sense it. Like I have so many clients that step up to the table and be like, well, yeah, I learned this in this particular program. I'm not going to name names or anything, but I learned this in this particular program and I'm never to eat this. And I'm never to do this. And I should always do keto and I should be fasting this. And then they come see me and I say, well, that's not necessarily true. And then they start to get a little bit like frustrated, right? Because they went through like this journey of like believing that they should do this for their life. And so we kind of break that down. And the way that I ask questions, they get frustrated because they're really looking for me to either A, say, no, don't do this, or do this. And I'm not. I'm allowing them to decide like how they can live their life and figuring out the best way that would fit them. And so that's probably the biggest challenge that I usually have to kind of break through is like, where are they coming at from their knowledge perspective already? And where are they living at? And why is that causing frustration for them? And how can we get them to the point, like you just said, to feel empowered to do things in their life that actually is what they want to do, right? Like what they choose. Like, did someone tell them to do keto so that they're going to do keto the rest of their life? They're going to do keto for, 60 plus years and then follow that? Well, maybe. But maybe it's just the concepts of keto that have helped them get to a point where they, had high blood glucose levels, right? And they needed to get their insulin regulated, and keto helped them with that. But that wasn't the answer for a long-term play, right? And so I don't know if that answers your question, but I feel like we're going to have to do as practitioners a little bit of like breaking this mindset of like, well, almost like a fixed mindset when we talk about it in schools and growth mindset, but a fixed mindset around health and how people have to basically biohack their way to a certain type of lifestyle because they've learned from somebody or somebody else is living in. They have to believe that to be true or they're going to be poor health or whatever. And so I just want them to feel comfortable and knowing that they're going to be able to make decisions that help them. And they're going to have a coach that's going to support them in making their decisions, not to tell them what decisions they need to make.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think the point that you bring up about, the information is so overabundant. And if we as, health coaches knowing what we know and we can discern it, if it's overwhelming to us, imagine what it's like to just a regular person who's getting started on a health journey and kind of feels like, okay, my doctor isn't really helping me as much as I would have thought. And like, now where do I go? Imagine just being that kind of out of touch and having all of the information, at your disposal. And a lot of these, I always say, there's two ways to approach things. You can have a short-term strategy or a long-term solution. And too many people are using short-term strategies as long-term solutions, and they are not sustainable long-term solutions. Okay, you want to lose 20 pounds and get your blood sugar balanced, like you said, okay, fine, do keto. But if you're a woman and you're doing keto longer than a few months, good luck with your hormones. It's
Yeah.
not a good long-term solution, right? And then now we're just needing to band-aid the effects of lowered hormones. And okay, so now we need to get your hormones. And it just keeps them reliant on that system of, you have a problem, now I'll fix it. And it never really gets them in touch, like I said, with like how they want to feel, which it sounds like this whole wellness suit thing is exactly tackling.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different facets, right? Like you said earlier, like you could read somebody from someone online around a particular diet, or your doctor has you live in a particular way, right? And so there's many different perspectives that come to the table, right? That you have to kind of break down. That's almost like your primary, besides listening, is like how to disseminate like where their learning styles and strategies have come from to help them think through like how they could choose their own path, right? Like, I mean, heaven forbid they can actually pick their own way of living life. So it's breaking down that, right, to kind of help them get there. But yeah, as far as like, is the wellness suit, it's just getting people to really understand that they don't need to chase anything in life. And I remember I told you this earlier. I think this is probably the most telling. And any practitioner that's on the high performance health program had a chance to attend a session with Dan Buettner, the author of the Blue Zones. And I asked one question on there. And the question was related to how I personally got into these things too, as myself, but where I would start doing all these like health strategies, right? Hacking, taking cold showers, plunges and all that and stuff, and thinking about it all day. Like I was literally like creating like all this stress around what I felt like I needed to do on a daily basis to live a healthy life. And so the question came from that nature, which is like, is there something to be said about how centenarians lived where nobody was telling them that they needed to take, these particular foods at this particular time, and they had to do this particular keto and this exercise? And, some of them are all great. And there's a lot of clinical studies around it, but they didn't live their life waking up thinking that every day. So where's the stress involved around that as well, right? Where we get so stressed out about choosing what health decisions we make that it becomes more detrimental to our health than good. And so what the question really got to, and what he said, is what was the foundation of me building this wellness suit concept, which is, he said, the Blue Zones never chased health. They lived it. They lived in the culture, the people that they live with, the food that they had in the fields outside, the exercise up mountains. Maybe that's not the lifestyle that we live nowadays for most cultures and people. But the way that they lived health was in a way that wasn't emotionally draining on the decisions that they needed to make. And so when we build their wellness suit, that's kind of the mission behind it, which is like, we have all these tools, we have all the clinical studies, and we're going to continue to learn what's best for you. Yes, saunas might be best for everybody, but I don't want you to get stressed out about it. I want you to wake up every day with the tools that best fit you and your lifestyle. And I want you to get excited of knowing what the future looks like and not have to worry about it. Go play with your kids all day, do the work that you love, wind down at night with your significant other, right? And just know that when you wake up the next day and you're grateful for everything you have, that life is just going to be amazing because you're doing some of the right things, you're habitually doing the right things, and you're not stressed out about whether or not it's the right choice.
Yes. Yeah. I in the last 15 years of coaching, the clients that usually have the most success are the ones that are not, I have, one client could be doing all the same things as this client, right? And the client who is so tightly attached and stressed about every single thing that they're doing and all the outcomes. And I love that you kind of tie it into, where did that personality trait come from, right? The type A's, the control freak, could control freak is like the term that people use, but like somebody who's super controlling and wants to have everything just so and make sure that you do it right. Like where is that coping mechanism coming from childhood, right? Did you have to prove yourself over and over? And I give those clients permission to, this doesn't have to be perfect for it to work. You don't have to be perfect to be good enough for this to work. It's okay if you, go out with your husband who you haven't gone out with in months and months, and you have something that you shouldn't. Go enjoy that time, right? There's so many attachments to, again, what you put in your body and how you're perceiving that, right? There's been studies done that even that makes a difference. What your thought process is about what you're ingesting, right? There's so much tied into this. And the wellness culture can get toxic if somebody is incredibly stressed about doing all the things. We were just talking, a bunch of coaches and I, about there were Vemi beds at the wellness summit, and they were talking, some of them use them and how amazing they were, but they were talking about how pricey they were. And I kind of chimed in and I was like, why don't you all just go outside and lie on the grass? And they're like, yeah, in the sun. I'm like, yeah, in the sun.
Yeah.
You could double habit stack that. And I'm not saying that there isn't like an incredible benefit to something like the Vemi bed, but we can kind of get pulled so far away from nature and think that we have to chase all these things to have it make a huge difference, when if like we just got back into touch with the human needs, our core human needs as human beings, we'd probably be doing all right.
Yeah. So, to tie into that, like I had one client that she had a lot of things that she wanted to work on and health wise, but she's like, so what supplements can you recommend me for? Just, I'm waking up every day, I just have severe brain fog. Like, lack of purpose is just slipping and all that. She's like, what supplements should I take? And I said, walk in nature. And she waited a minute. She looked at me and I said, do you have a trail next to you? And she's like, yeah. And I said, do you like walking? Yeah. I'm like, can you carve out like 15 to 20 minutes to walk in the trail? Just once a day, once every other day? It's like, yeah, that kind of sounds nice. I said, all right, try it out. Let me know. So she tried it out. She came back. She was like, oh my gosh, that was so invigorating. That was like the most. And I said, there's so much to be said about just going out and forest bathing or being out in nature. And of course, walking has a tremendous different clinical studies around the importance of it. But you don't need to biohack your supplement regimen and everything else. Like sometimes it just takes a little bit out of the element, right? Living in your daily work stress, living in your daily home stress, maybe toxic relationships that are surrounding you. Just break away, right? Just break away and walk 10, 20 minutes daily every other day and just watch how your body feels, because it's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes we overcomplicate it. And sometimes people need permission. Like there are literally people that have been like, oh, I'm so glad you said that. I knew I needed to like take time by myself, but like now that you're telling me it will help. A lot of people just need permission to like actually feel what they might deep inside know is right. And sometimes it takes a quote unquote professional to give them that support, right? To where they feel like, okay, like this will matter and I should do it. Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're really looking to pull that out, I hiring a thought coach, like a thought and writing coach, has been an incredible journey for me, because somebody that will really like ask you why, when it's like the stuff that you talk about that nobody asks you why. And then you get like really deep, and like you get to this point where like the conversation is so rich that you're like, wow, I didn't even know that I could think like that. It really is. It's amazing. When I used to talk in schools, I used to share one quote. I believe it was Henry Ford that said, thinking is the hardest thing you can do in life, and it's even harder now. And that was way back then, before there was smartphones and apps and all these crazy things, right? And so just imagine like how less of time we actually spend just thinking, and how cool that would be if you just carved out a little bit of time in your day, just for a little bit of thought reflection. So.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I would love for you to share with our listeners what your future vision looks like, because it sounds pretty wonderful from what you shared before we started recording. So what's your kind of future vision for where you're headed?
Absolutely. So So right now I'm building the virtual infrastructure, and then I'm set up at a local chiropractic clinic. But what I'm looking to do is get the virtual wellness center set up appropriately so that it's running and it runs how it should and how we think it should. And then translate that into building a physical wellness center, which there are tons of great wellness centers. So this is not a new concept. And what we're considering is like nearby, I have a friend that runs a fire and ice and a float tank center. So bringing in those concepts, some of the things like EWOT or HBOT type things into the wellness center, practitioners into the wellness center, fit groups, and then things like heart math and Alzheimer's prevention type rooms. So building like this robust wellness center. And then my little spin on this is, I don't know if they're out there, but if you've seen these, so there's these outdoor exercise parks, right? Where they have like 2-mile runs, but then they have exercise equipments throughout each one. I want to build that around the wellness center so people can come and not just like go into the wellness center and enjoy the amenities, but actually just enjoy the outside of the wellness center. I want to bring my farming background to it. So in the front like corner, we'll have learning about farming, like school programs with kids. And I have a ton of like organic and regenerative farmer that are friends of mine in the area that I want to bring in and build like an educational program for. And how I see that tying in is like nowadays on the East Coast, probably practitioners are familiar with this, but they have like the pharmacy with an F program where you can actually get prescriptions for food. I'd like to see that be everywhere, but maybe build that in as like we're working with clients, like we're growing our own food there and stuff. But ultimately, what I want to do after we build this and run it right, I want to actually help package that up and help practitioners build something similar to their own liking and their own visions and everything, but as a like standard operating procedure process that they can just take and implement. Because what we're seeing is like, and I'm hearing from a lot of friends of mine as well, is a mass exodus of like nurses and medical doctors that are just fed up with the program. So they're looking to go out. They're doing more of a functional holistic approach. They're partnering with holistic approaches as well. But maybe they're entering the space without knowing anything about entrepreneurship, right? So they want to start their own practice and they're like, well, how would I do? Like, do I start in the community? Do I have a network already built up in the community where I know people would come see me? What does that look like? And so my vision is getting this so right and then having people come in and consult and make sure that it's packaged up right, and then go out and help other people leverage that across the United States, Canada, wherever. But I want to help people that are exiting this space and get ahead of that trend and help them basically build that across the nation, because how beautiful would that be to have more of these wellness centers in every pocket, helping people out that they can feel comfortable in going to.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. It's like an IHP entrepreneurial suit. It's the next suit. What do you want your business to look like? How do you want it to feel here?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's such an entrepreneur. We talk about a lot of the lightness and entrepreneurship on this podcast or in this interview, but there's a lot of challenges, right? I mean, when I started the entrepreneurship journey, I didn't say it earlier on, but what I meant to say is like the 2 apps that I built didn't work out, right? Basically, that's kind of what I said. And so it took a lot of entrepreneurship struggles in there. And so it's no different. Like when you're building a health coaching practice or a wellness center or anything, like it takes a certain particular skill, not only like the skill in doing the work, but a mental skill as well. And so I want to make sure that we incorporate that and we can help people, because if they have this beautiful gift to offer, I want to help them get there and be able to offer that in the best way that they can. And so, yeah, like you said, maybe that's like the entrepreneur wellness suit at its finest.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, this is such a great interview. Thank you so much for everything that you shared. I think it was so valuable to our listeners. If people want to connect with you further or find out more, where are all of the places that you show up, website, social media?
Yeah, so our website is ricewellnesscenter.com. And then if you're in the local, you want to come see me, I'm set up in Chiropractic and Beyond in Caledonia, Michigan. I'm on all the different social channels, so you can find me on Facebook, Instagram. I'll tell you, I spend most of my time on Facebook, interesting enough. Like that's kind of where I found most of my followers or my community to come from. And then Instagram, and then I'm on TikTok and all that, but that's definitely not been my focus. So.
That's great. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Integrative Health Coach Success podcast. I think everybody would agree that this was a great interview. So I thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Julia. This is awesome. I love having good conversations with awesome people. So.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much, Troy.